Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the intensive training program, the last of the sessions for this year. Wei-Kai is adjusting me. So we've reached a point of understanding some of the grammar of hypnosis. We've been studying the language of hypnosis. These are linguistic forms that are designed to elicit phenomenological effects. By phenomenological effects, I mean realizations. Yes, you can have an understanding of love or an understanding of hypnosis or friendship that can be an academic understanding, but there's a moment where that academic understanding can become a realization. And it's a moment that we want to realize something, that we need different grammatical forms that will prompt a realization, just like you need a joke to prompt the realization of humor. You can't just say to somebody, take a deep breath, close your eyes and laugh. It's not going to work. So inductive language has an unusual grammar, and it could have a destabilizing grammar, could have an evocative grammar, could have a strategic grammar. So destabilizing is that it's unusual. Just like in a joke, when you switch levels, the understanding of the joke is in many cases predicated on a switch in levels. Terrible joke. What's the difference between Phoenix and yogurt? The difference between Phoenix and yogurt is the yogurt has active culture. Now, if you decided to laugh at that joke, it would be because suddenly you realized the humor in the switch between one meaning of culture and another meaning of culture. There needs to be a destabilizing element in jokes. That destabilizing element prompts a realization. Some of the language forms that we're using, like dissociation statements, especially double dissociation statements, are unusual language forms, and they prompt a little bit of uncertainty, and then they elicit an effect. Remember the dissociation statement, 3 parts: enter, offer, exit. Your conscious mind can listen to my voice, while your unconscious mind can focus inside, because it's nice to realize things both consciously and unconsciously. A pacing statement, a leading statement, and a motivating statement. And we just don't go around talking like that in our everyday life, using things like dissociation statements. But in hypnotic grammar, if you're using dissociation statements, da 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 da, but da 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 ba. I'm saying it as a rhythm because it's like a dance step. Pace, suggest, motivate. And by doing those steps and building this orientation, evocative orientation, implicit orientation, da 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 da, we can prompt the realization of dissociation, because you can't say to somebody, I want you to dissociate right now. We have to set up a context for that to happen. Same thing with sleep. You can't will yourself to sleep. You need to set up a context so that sleep just happens. You allow yourself to fantasize, for example, and you allow yourself to review a memory, and suddenly you drift off into sleep. So when the realization needs to happen, there needs to be some discrete automaticity. Something just has to happen. Then we need to use language forms that prompt that kind of a realization. So we studied so far truisms. We studied a little bit about embedded commands. Remember that embedded commands are when you're hesitating after a permissive verb. You can listen to my voice. Now in English, listen to my voice is in the imperative form. So you can listen to my voice is a statement of fact because you can do that, but you can listen to my voice is also an imperative message when you make a small shift in tone, when you come to the verb that is already in its regular form. That doesn't happen in most languages, but it does happen in English. So these were things that Milton Erickson explored. He never categorized them. Other people came along and categorized and said, this is a truism, this is a yes set, this is a dissociation statement, this is a double dissociation statement, this is an embedded command. For Erickson, it was like, okay, the client is here, the client could be here, and what can I do that will help the client to go from here to here as a discrete jump, a realization that something just happened. So we're practicing these language forms and making these language forms formulaic, at least at first. And then we want these to become part of your repertoire so that when you're doing the induction, absorb, details possibilities in the present tense, ratify, reflect back changes in declarative sentences that happened, that are noticeable for the most part, from the beginning of the absorption phase to the end of the absorption phase. Reflect back those changes. As I've been talking with you, your breathing rhythm has changed. If that's true, your pulse rate has changed. Perhaps you can see it. Your motor movements have changed, inferring you're realizing trance. You're now in trance. You're doing it right. So the ratification statements, these simple declarative sentences, have evocative meaning. They have implicit meaning in the context of doing the induction. As you're doing the absorption, in order to condense the communication, we're going to be using hypnotic language forms like truisms, like embedded commands, like yes sets, and also, as we'll study today, presuppositions and implied causatives. When we start again, oh, I'm hearing voices. I hope that the voices go away. Otherwise, I'll need to change my medication level. So now, the story about using these different language forms is that each of them is being used for a phenomenological effect. If you keep the phenomenological effect predominant in your mind, probably you'll invent these language forms. Remember, what are the phenomenological effects? We're contextualizing the situation as hypnosis directly, let's do hypnosis, or indirectly. There are things that you can realize. We are asking the person to focus their attention. For some people, that's enough to say, I'm in trance, I've changed my attention. We're asking people to alter the intensity of their experience, make it greater or smaller, increase it or diminish it. We're asking people to dissociate, and we're asking people to respond to implied meaning. So those are the phenomenological effects. When we synergistically amalgamate those phenomenological effects, more likely than not, the person is going to say, I'm in a trance. Now, even though the person is defining the situation as something that happens inside them, I am in a trance, the essence of what we're doing is establishing a hypnotic communication. Hypnosis, in my humble opinion, is a communicational state, like friendship is a communicational state, like marriage is a communicational state, like cooperation is a communicational state. And we want the person to be in this communicational state, even though our tendency is to define things as happening within an individual, because we don't have so many words to define things as a systemic interactional effect. You're establishing a hypnotic relationship so that you can do therapy that's based on building some of the components of that relationship. How people might want to externalize their attention, for example, if they had pain, how people might want to diminish sensation, for example, if they had pain, how people might want to dissociate away from something if they had pain, how people can keenly respond to the implied messages. So it's like when I'm doing a hypnotic induction, even though you would be thinking about doing the reverse arm levitation, or you would be thinking about focusing on a spot on the wall, It's as if I'm looking at the client and I'm seeing that diamond and I'm thinking, what does this person need to say I'm in a trance? A change in attentional processes? I'll try that. A change in the ability to modify sensations and perceptions and to increase or decrease the intensity? I'll try that. Dissociation. Some people are only going to say they're in a trance if something just happens. Okay, I'll try that. Responsiveness. Some people may know that they're in a trance because they were responding without realizing what it was, what the cue was that caused the response. Okay, I'll try that. So every induction is based to one extent or another on focus attention plus, alter intensity plus, dissociate plus, alter your response to meaning plus, search for insight for personal meaning plus, define the context as being hypnotic. And plus, 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 plus synergistically amalgamates into I'm in a trance. I can change my state. Even if you don't know much about doing hypnotherapy, if you're working with a client at this fundamental level and you say, let's do a little hypnosis, you demonstrate to the client, oh, I can change my state. The client gets a realization, I can change my state. I can go from a depressed state to a hypnotic state. I can go from a tense state to a hypnotic state. And that may in itself be systemically significant. The problem with induction is it takes a little while, like this first class, the A series, to learn how to do a competent induction. Doing a competent induction is like, how do I get from Phoenix to Los Angeles? Okay, I get in a plane. Now the next question is, what do I do when I'm in Los Angeles? Okay, that is a much bigger question. So the hypnosis is just, how do I help this person to change their state, to get into a hypnotic relationship? And that's why we're practicing induction. So our topic for today is to increase our competence at using language forms. And we're going to be studying today two language forms, presuppositions and also implied causative, which is could be considered a specialized form of presuppositions. And when people with a linguistic orientation studied what Milton Erickson was doing, they could see that some of the atomic units, like we're building this molecule, and we have some fundamental units like truisms. Truisms are a fundamental unit, and from truisms you can create dissociation statements. Your conscious mind can listen to my voice. That's a truism. Your conscious mind can listen to my voice, but your unconscious mind can focus inside. That's a truism, because it's nice to realize comfort. That's a truism. So if we're putting together three truisms with a conjunction, but, while, because, and then we're linking that with a conjunction so that you can enjoy developing comfort as a motivation statement, then we are using truisms as an elemental form to create a larger molecule of dissociation statement. If we use three truisms to a guiding truism, we're creating a yes set. Your feet are on the floor, your body can rest in the chair, your arms can rest on the table, and your mind can easily rest also. So truisms are elemental forms, and from truisms we can build and create other forms. So Dana's here, and we're going to do a demonstration, and this demonstration, another form of induction that we can use, but it's a form of induction that could be based on using more presuppositional language, also implied causatives. Explain what each of those terms mean, presupposition and implied causatives, after we do the demonstration with Dana. So Dana, we don't need you to say very much here, right? But thank you for being here. So what I'd like you to do is to just rest your hands lightly on the fabric of your jeans. Right. And then as you find a focus for your eyes, you can begin to notice that there can be movement sensations and that there are, I don't know how you'll notice or where you'll notice sensations of movement. But as you begin to notice those small movements, you can begin to realize that there's a direction to the movements. And it seems like your right hand can begin to feel lighter. And I don't know just where the light sensations can begin. Perhaps you notice those light sensations at the tip of your fingers. And that can lead you to realize that there are lifting sensations that you can feel in the palm of your hands. And I don't know consciously just how those lifting sensations can begin to develop. And as your right hand lifts, your left hand can lower. And it can be interesting to realize how your elbow can begin to bend and how it can feel as if something is pulling your hand up. So that when your hand touches your face, you can use that as a signal to let yourself take an easy breath and close your eyes and enjoy developing comfort. And it can be so interesting to feel those ratcheting movements, those small, steady movements. And you don't know just where that hand can touch your face. And I don't know just when your hand can touch your face. But it can be so interesting and so easy to enjoy the movements where it can seem as though something is pushing your hand up. And you can look forward to when that hand can touch your face, because that can be that moment in which you, even with your eyes closed, you can look up to the top of your head, take an easy breath, and notice that as you exhale fully, it can be even more comforting and at ease. And although my conscious mind doesn't know just where that hand can touch your face, and my unconscious mind can't really know how that hand will feel when it touches your face. But as your hand makes connection with your face, it can be so nice that that's right. That's really right. And Dana, there's not that normal tendency to just touch your face and allow your hand to move back down again. So that when that hand in those unsteady, trance-like movements touches your leg, then you can use that as a signal to take 1 or 2 or 3 easy breaths and open your eyes and bring yourself back fully alert. wide awake, rested and refreshed all over. Hi.
That's interesting.
What was interesting? You have to speak loud because of the mask.
Okay, yeah. At first, my hands felt shaky because it wasn't placed on anything, and I kind of was holding it up. And as my hand was raising, I felt it started in my fingertips. It felt light, and then my wrist felt lighter. Like it almost felt like my wrist was bent. And that's when my hand started coming up more and more. And when my eyes were closed, I didn't even kind of realize it was coming up till it was close to my face.
Yep. Okay, great. So, and then what was the sensations of how your arm was coming up?
It was very light. My attention wasn't on it. It was more, I paid closer attention when my hand was coming down.
Yep.
That took a little bit more effort.
Why did your hand come down?
What do you mean, why did it come down?
Did it come down in response to your directive, to my directive?
I think it came down in response to
What was my directive?
You said as your hand is going to start to come back down to your leg.
Yes, but I actually said that as a generalization.
Okay.
But you understood that as a personal message.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that because there was something embedded in that message, and you were keenly responsive to the meaning of my communication. You didn't need to put your hand down, but you put your hand down because you were so keenly responsive to the innuendo, so keenly responsive to the subtext of the communication. It was the same thing that was true with closing your eyes. When I was saying you can close your eyes, you closed your eyes, and that was just another example of building responsiveness to the embedded command, to the meaning of the communication.
It happened when you said to touch my face too, because that was a little bit, as my hand was here, I knew I had to move it sideways to come to touch my face. So that was a little bit of a response to your,
to meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then this feeling, this kind of ratcheting feeling as your hand came up, you weren't even specially aware of that.
No, it felt like it was doing it on its own.
Yeah. But that kind of ratcheting movement is often something we see when somebody is doing an arm levitation, just seeing it. And then the fact of the matter was, even though you had your eyes closed, I was doing it with you. Okay. So I was levitating my left hand in response to your levitating your right hand. And I could reference some of the things that I felt as I was moving my hand, and I could use those suggestively to you as you were doing that.
Yeah, I knew I was in trance when I didn't feel shaky anymore. Because at first I was shaky, and as my hand came up, it stopped shaking.
Yep. Okay. So this idea of using arm levitation, let's go back to the group. You did great, and thank you so much. So this idea of levitation was something that used because it's an easy phenomenon. Most people enjoy it. Not everybody enjoys it. But people commonly enjoy the sensation, and it's a convincer. It convinces you that you're not responding in the normal, everyday manner. Something different is happening now. I'm going to share my screen so that I can use the PowerPoint that we've used from previous sessions that I've taught on the language of hypnosis, and go through some of the things that I was thinking as I was doing that induction. I think I need a little more practice because I didn't do exactly what I had promised myself to do, which was I was going to be practicing using presuppositional and implied causative forms. I think I could have done that better, but let's think about how I could do that better and look at the PowerPoint as an example. So I'm sharing my screen now, PowerPoint from the beginning. You have this PowerPoint, the language of hypnosis. This is a way of gift wrapping possibilities, gift wrapping conceptual realizations. Like you have to gift wrap humor in a joke, gift wrap sleep in a fantasy. We're gift wrapping these phenomenological possibilities within these forms. There's nothing wrong with using direct suggestion. We talked about truisms, embedded commands. We haven't talked about quotes yet, but we'll leave that for the session in January. We've talked about the yes set. Now we're into this idea of presuppositions, and these are fundamental language forms. If you took one of Brent's inductions, one of my inductions, one of Weikai's inductions, and you broke it down into its elemental forms, it would be as if we were creating an atom by putting together electrons, neutrons, and positrons. Well, to create this hypnosis molecule, we're putting together truisms and presuppositions for the most part. And dissociation statements, double dissociation statements, we already went over last week. We'll review them, of course, as you need them. So let's go to the handout on presuppositions. So to create a presupposition, what is your goal? Okay, it's an attentional goal, focus inside. Create a truism, you can focus inside. The truism is the root, the basic. And then add a clause before the truism. I don't know when you can focus inside. Now you're presupposing focus inside. It's just a matter of when. So that is a very difficult kind of statement to resist because the presupposition is embedded, the embedded truism within the clause. I don't know when you can focus inside. I don't know how your hand can begin to lift up. Now that's a different form of presupposition because that's a presupposition of process. I don't know where your hand can touch your face. That's a presupposition of place. A presupposition of process. I don't know how your hand can continue to lift up so that when it touches your face, then you can take an easy breath. That's really more of an implied causative. A presupposition of quantity or quality or tempo. Your conscious mind doesn't know how deeply, how quickly you can focus inside. So you can focus inside. The truism serves as the root. And then if you're thinking when, where, how much, how quickly, then you create the clause that joins the relative pronoun and makes the truism into a presupposition. There are a zillion ways, well, finite ways if you're a linguist, of creating presuppositions, natural presuppositions in the English language. And many sentences have presuppositional elements that we don't even pay attention to. These forms that I'm giving you of using a clause to create presuppositions are the most common ways that I, Brent, Weikai, would create presuppositions in a hypnotic context. So I don't know, your conscious mind doesn't know, your unconscious mind can't realize how much, when, where, how quickly you can focus inside. You can notice that you're not aware of your body. You can notice how sounds can seem more vivid. So we're using presuppositions for two phenomenological effects: to guide attention and to alter intensity. If you just think, guide attention, alter intensity, probably you would invent presuppositions, which I imagine is what Milton Erickson did, because although I'm teaching you backwards, I'm saying, here's the form, practice the form, learn the form, get it into your procedural memory, and then you'll be able to embellish it. There was nobody to teach Erickson. It was just that people would look at the flow of Erickson and they say, oh, this component, that is a presupposition. let's call it a presupposition, and let's call it a presupposition of time or place or quantity. And then we have a technique. It's not really the technique, it's the intention. You're thinking about focus your attention or alter intensity. It's natural that you would use a presupposition, just as it would be natural to tell a joke to somebody you want to laugh. Now, a second way of offering presuppositions is by using an auxiliary verb. And I left that out, I think, when I was working with Dana. You can relax is a truism. Everybody is capable of relaxing. You can enjoy relaxation. You can experience relaxation. You can realize relaxation. You can appreciate relaxation. Whatever auxiliary verb you're using makes the nominalized form of the verb a presupposition. So this is another common way of creating a presupposition. But again, what is it that you want the person to realize? You can enjoy feelings of ease and comfort in your body. You can enjoy focusing on the images that you have in your mind. You can experience a sense of ease. You can experience a sense of growing comfort, evolving ease. So by using auxiliary verbs, we presuppose what comes next. Keep it in your mind. That's another way of creating a presupposition. We can create presuppositions by using adverbs. You can relax is a truism. You can relax quickly. You can relax easily. You can relax slowly. You can relax fully is a presupposition of relaxing. So it is almost axiomatic that I never, as in no time at all that I can remember in this previous year, have I ever done hypnosis with a client and said, relax, because relaxation has been overly identified as an essential of hypnosis, and it really isn't. It's just one way of altering intensity. So, but I might suggest you can relax easily, you can relax fully, you can relax completely, you can relax slowly, you can relax intensely. So using an adverb after the verb creates a presupposition. So we can double our presuppositions. Do you realize you can relax quickly? You don't fully realize you can relax quickly, do you? And then we're practicing using a tag question and making a more complex form that has an even richer evocative effect. So once we can get down these basic forms, let's not just stop there. Let's think about how we can combine them. And, you know, presuppositions have the flavor of alternatives. I don't know how your parents were when you grew up, but my parents would say, okay, do you want to go to sleep before or after the next commercial? When I was a child, and then it seemed that I had a choice and that I was an agent of deciding my own destiny, which really wasn't true. But you can relax before or after you take a deep breath. So using alternatives is another way of presupposing relaxation. It's just a matter of whether it's before or after using the form of alternatives. Seemingly, I don't use that so often stylistically. So the most presuppositions that I would create would be using a clause. I don't know, you don't know, your conscious mind doesn't know, your unconscious mind can't possibly realize. It can be so interesting too. And using this clause and putting in the relative pronouns of when, where, how deeply, how quickly is an easy way to create presuppositions. Using the auxiliary verbs, you can appreciate relaxation, enjoy relaxation. Using adverbs, you can relax slowly, you can relax easily, you can relax quickly. And that those are the presuppositional forms that I want you to practice in the exercise. So we were doing this induction, which was semi-traditional induction of just allowing your hands to rest lightly on your jeans, and then suggesting by using presuppositions that there can be movement sensations. I don't know which hand can begin to notice movement sensations. You don't know consciously where the movement sensations can begin. I don't know how the movement sensations can have a direction. You can't really know how those movement sensations can begin to develop into sensations of lightness. And you can't really understand exactly how that movement begins to develop, can you? Using a tag question. But it can be so interesting to enjoy those relaxations, those movement sensations easily. And it can be so pleasant to allow yourself to enjoy comfortably and easily the way in which your hand can lift up towards your face. Now, adding into the equation an implied causative. Implied causative is in the form of when X, or since X, then Y, where X is a behavior and Y is a state, or X is a state and Y is a behavior. For example, when you take a deep breath, then you can experience transcomfort. When you experience transcomfort, then you can take a deep breath. When you begin to realize transcomfort, then you can take a deep breath. When you realize transcomfort effortlessly, then you can take a deep breath. So we're taking truisms, take a deep breath, you can experience transcomfort, and we're putting them together in a different order of when, then. And this creates an implied causative named by Ernest Rossi in the book Hypnotic Realities. So why would we use this form? When your hand touches your face, then you can close your eyes and let yourself really focus inside. We're using this because now we're talking about responsive behavior. Remember, alter intensity, alter attention, modify intensity, promote dissociation, build responsiveness. The implied causative is in a form that prompts response to meaning. Since you're sitting here, you can take a deep breath and allow your body to be at ease. When you notice the way in which your hand lightly touches your face, then you can allow yourself to exhale fully and enjoy developing trance. Now, what we found with Dana as our experienced hypnotic subject is that she was highly responsive to those suggestions for a behavioral response. When do we know that the induction is over? We know that the induction is over when the person starts to respond to meaning. So these are the two forms that I'd like you to practice for an exercise, working with a partner. And if you find yourself in a group where there's more than 2 people, then you can have multiple hypnotists. And one person uses a presupposition, the next person builds on that presupposition. If there's a third hypnotist, build on an implied causative. And if you're the subject, just allow yourself to respond. And this is an opportunity to practice using language forms until they become second nature. Yesterday in my Spanish course, I was practicing using indirect objects and in sentences, which was a weird form for me as far as combining direct and indirect objects in a Spanish phrase in a different, it's a different order than I would do in English. Okay, practice, 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 practice using the form. So the hypnotic subject, this is not a time for you to go into a deep trance. This is not a time for you to allow yourself to be vulnerable. Don't allow yourself to be vulnerable. We just need somebody to talk to so that the hypnotist can practice using presuppositions in various forms and practice using implied causatives. So if you're in a group with, say, 4 students, one of you use a presupposition of using a clause. Next person use a presupposition of doing an auxiliary verb. Next person use an adverb to create a presupposition. Next person, or this might be person number 1 now, use a implied causative. And the implied causative is prompting a behavioral response. When you take a deep breath, does the person take a deep breath or not? When you take a deep breath, then you can close your eyes and focus inside. So these forms are designed to create phenomenological effects. The implied causative is designed to create the phenomenological effect you're responding. Presuppositions are designed more or less to guide attention and alter intensity. Dissociation statements designed to prompt a dissociative realization. So the ARE in itself is designed to promote the 4 phenomenological effects, but then within the ARE, think about the Russian Matryoshka doll. There's a doll within a doll within a doll within a doll, and there's a delight at taking off the shell and finding the similar dolls within. We're creating a Matryoshka doll in the induction where the ARE has the effect of guiding attention, altering intensity, promoting dissociation, and building response to meaning. Now we have language forms that we can use within the absorption phase. We haven't gotten up to practicing that yet, except in this little demonstration of a semi-traditional induction of using arm levitation to suggest as a context for creating an induction. That's a very semi-traditional induction, like looking at a spot on the wall or doing reverse levitation as an induction device, just suggesting lightness and suggesting that using presuppositional forms to and implied causatives. Implied causative, when your hand touches your face, then you can take a deep breath and close your eyes. So since your hand is moving up, then you can focus on the sensations of ease and comfort, going from a behavior to a state or a state to a behavior. What you're looking for is the person responding to implied meaning, which is something that we saw with Dana. Oh my gosh, that's a lot of content. Now, practicing that is a matter of going slowly in your group. If you're confused and you don't know how to create that form, perfectly understandable. Just flag us. One of the helpers will come along and help you to do this. But now it's a matter of just practicing with these 2 forms as much as possible, using presuppositions and implied causatives, different forms of presuppositions, until these become part of your vocabulary. Think of the effect. Guide attention, alter intensity. Guide attention, alter intensity. Those are the effects that you want to get. When you get to an implied causative, response to meaning. That's the effect that you're trying to get. So you're using that form because that form naturally has a tendency to get you to respond to meaning. Let's see if there's any immediate questions at this moment. And
Jeff.
Hello.
Hi, it's Mariana. Brenda is wondering if you want us to use arm levitation in this practice, or does it matter?
No, it doesn't really matter if you're using arm levitation. You don't have to use arm levitation in this exercise, but if you've never done an arm levitation induction, I recommend that you practice with it. But if you were doing focus on a spot on the wall, and I don't know how your vision can begin to change. And it can be that your vision becomes more two-dimensional. It may seem as if the periphery of your vision becomes blurry. So you can still use presuppositional forms and implied causatives. And when you notice a change in your vision, then you can take a deep breath and allow your body to be at ease. So every induction, if you're talking about an induction that has to do with a childhood memory, if you're talking about an induction that has to do with sitting down in a chair, whatever induction you're doing, you intersperse, like the Matryoshka doll, these language forms to prompt the phenomenological effects that you're hoping for the person to achieve, alterations in attention, intensity, dissociation, and response, defining the situation as hypnosis. It seems so easy to me, but after, more than almost 50 years of practicing this, it actually does become easy, except that I knew from my induction with Dana, I could use a little bit more practice because I didn't use all of these different forms that I had prompted myself to use. I became so intrigued with Dana's responsiveness that I was more focused on that than I was on practicing the different forms of presupposition. So you can have this list in front of you: clause, auxiliary verb, adverb. Clause, when, where, how deeply, how quickly. Clause, and then auxiliary verb, enjoy relaxation, explore relaxation, appreciate relaxation, and then a presupposition. You can relax easily, you can relax quickly, you can relax fully, you can relax slowly. However you can think of an adverb to put in that will make it into a presupposition. I know it's a little bit difficult, and that's a lot to master, and then practicing using the implied causative. Since you're sitting here, then you can take a deep breath and allow yourself to enjoy focusing inside. And once we get the hang of these simple forms, we're going to add things that make them more complex, more rich, but still focus on our phenomenological goals. The trance induction is over when the person starts to respond to meaning. How do we know that the person responds to meaning? Well, the implied causative is an example, because you're saying when you focus inside, then you can take a deep breath. Does the person take a deep breath or not at that moment? If the person doesn't take a deep breath, they're not especially responsive to meaning. We might continue the induction a little bit more until the person starts to respond to implied meaning. Then we can go on to the next stage. As I've been talking with you, certain changes have happened as your body accommodates to the resting state. Ratification, your breathing rate has changed, your pulse rate has changed, your motor tone has changed. Now we're doing this with a passive client. The client is not being asked to talk in this exercise. We want to be able to make this into a hypnotic conversation as quickly as possible, but right now it's just a matter of practice presuppositions in the 3 different forms, practice implied causative, and what I hope that we'll do is put you into a group of 4 so that there would be 3 hypnotists, 4 things to practice: presupposition 1, 2, 3, implied causative, so that we keep on going around in a group and practicing, and then you get to fumble in front of your colleagues, but your colleagues also get to help you. If you want to restate your sentence, just restate it. Wait, do over. I want to try that again. You're saying in a presupposition, you can relax slowly. Okay, you can relax slowly. Can you not? And you're practicing a do-over. It's okay. Okay, Mariana, are we good, or is there something else that people, in my speedy way of going through something complex, and I hope illustrating it enough times that you get the idea, because if you just keep this in mind about clause, auxiliary verb, adverb, implied causative, those are the things to practice. And then realize that when you learn these in their hypnotic iteration, they are things that can be useful in everyday communication and in your communication as a psychotherapist, whether or not you use an induction. Using presuppositional language becomes part of the way that you speak. Okay, so let's stop there. Mariana, is anybody desperate for an explanation about something?
No, actually, we have a lot of questions, but I think we can do that later.
Great.
And we'll give them the handout, the PPT, because they didn't have this one.
Yeah, they should have this because I gave it to Jess to put on online. They should have this PowerPoint. It should be on the platform.
Oh, Jeff.
It's on the platform in a number of different forms. Hi.
Harvey is asking, with 4 people, do we have one person induce trance or disregard trance and just practice presuppositions and implied causatives?
Now, if you have 4 people, you have 4 different forms. So one person is the subject, presupposition 1, presupposition 2, presupposition 3, implied causative. So person number 1 gets back to the implied causative. Presupposition 1, 2, 3, implied causative. Presupposition 1, 2, 3, implied causative. So you're practicing by going around, and all that you're doing is you're practicing a movement and doing it around a group. If you have 4 people in the group, it works perfectly so that the roles will continue to change and you won't always be using the same presuppositional form.
So no need for absorption phase, just practicing.
No, we're just no need for the absorption phase. Just like last time, we were practicing using yes sets as a induction device, something that you would never do in life. We're just practicing this time using presuppositions and implied causatives. They will have a hypnotic effect just by virtue of the fact of their structure. But really, these are going to be things that we are going to insert into the absorption phase. And we're going to be practicing that when we get together in January for level B. Okay?
Hold on, we go.
Okay, thank you.
And so how much time will we give people? I would say that we would give people about 30 minutes to do this exercise and to practice it. And if you're going to practice it in 2s, it's fine. If you're going to practice it in a group of 4, that's fine. Use your intelligence to figure out how the group will form itself so that everybody can get a chance to practice being the hypnotic subject and being the hypnotist within your practice group. If you have any problems, there'll be somebody who can come and find you. So if we're available to go into a group when somebody has a question, how will they make their question known? They raise their hand. There's a function, raise your hand, and we'll know to come and help you.
So today is Toby, Dana, Mariana, and me.
So we have Wekai, Mariana, Dana,
and
Toby who are helping. And I am meta helping. When anybody needs, I'll be able to come into whatever group you need and coach you to be able to do this a little bit better. It's just, think about being a kid and tying your shoes and making bunny ears and somebody instructing you about how to create bunny ears and how to tie your shoes. But then after a little while of practice, you just do it without thinking and you don't have to create bunny ears again. We're just using training wheels to get you into the spirit of learning to use these different forms. Okay, so 30 minutes from now, practice, and then we'll come back and talk more and see what we can add to this and answer whatever questions you have. Thank you so much. You survived the exercise. You did it. And not so easy, but again, just by virtue of practicing, this becomes second nature. So three things. One is because we complete at the end of this session the B component of the class, then, or the A component. This is complete the A component. Yeah, thank you. Then there's an evaluation form. So we send you a certificate of attendance. Please complete the evaluation form. Second thing is that you'll notice that there are stylistic differences in teaching style and also in communication style that Brent and I do. Like Brent is more insistent about not using I statement, and I say it's okay to use I statements when you're understanding the presupposition that you're creating. I don't know how you can begin to enjoy developing comfort. You'd have to, I don't know how you can enjoy developing comfort. So developing comfort is a form of presupposition. I don't know how is another form of presupposition. We're putting presuppositions together. But it's as if I'm thinking, okay, developing comfort, that's the gift. How can I package that gift in a simple truism? You can enjoy, you can develop comfort. In a presupposition, you can enjoy developing comfort. In a complex presupposition, I don't know how you can enjoy developing comfort using a bit of an embedded command, enjoy developing comfort. So as we practice these simple forms very quickly, they become richer. Now, don't just use these because it's a hypnotic context. Once you learn these forms, then you can use them in everyday life. And there's an example that I just came across in the retrospective biography that I'm finishing of Milton Erickson. Retrospective in that I've interviewed 100 colleagues who knew Dr. Erickson from 1980 to 2020, and I've collected their stories and put them into a book, and that book will be out early next year. So there was a story of Dr. Erickson who was teaching in San Francisco, and he was invited by a pediatrician who was the head of the local society. And the pediatrician had an adolescent boy, and the boy was creating all kinds of nuisance, being unsocialized and aggressive. And so Dr. Bauman, the person who relates the story, kept on telling the boy, okay, well, we're going to have this demonstration. It's going to be a class. Dr. Erickson, the great Dr. Erickson is coming. He's going to do hypnosis with you. The great Dr. Erickson is coming. He's going to do hypnosis with you. Finally, Dr. Erickson shows up and it's a class. And Dr. Erickson has the boy weave his way through the audience, sit on stage next to him as he lectures to the class. Now, knowing Dr. Erickson, he would intersperse therapeutic ideas into his teaching that would be relevant to the boy, but they would be like bank shots. And he would be speaking obtusely in one direction to have meaning in another direction. And at the end of the session, Dr. Erickson still hadn't done the hypnosis with the boy. And it was expected that he would be doing a formal trance with this boy. But as Dr. Erickson is walking off stage, he looks back at the boy and he says, I don't know how you'll change your behavior. I really don't know how. And then he leaves. And the boy does change his behavior and becomes more socialized. Now, the fact of the matter is that as he grew up and developed, he became an attorney. So we can't say that this was a therapy that fixed the boy for sure, but at least we would find a way of using some of the talents that he had developed in his adolescence. So using presuppositions in everyday communication, when there's a message, use them. If you're creating the trance and you're thinking, okay, now that I've created a trance, how can I use it? And let's say that the problem is stopping smoking. I don't know how you'll stop smoking. I don't know when you'll stop smoking. Your unconscious mind doesn't know when you'll stop smoking. My conscious mind doesn't know when you'll enjoy stopping smoking. My conscious mind doesn't realize how you can enjoy developing your health. So you could do the induction, you could use some of these presuppositional forms as relatively direct suggestions about how the person can overcome the problem. If you're gift wrapping phenomenology in the induction, you're gift wrapping success in the after the induction. That's the easiest way to start to use hypnotic strategies for therapeutic reasons. There's lots to be learned about using hypnosis for therapy, but at least I want you to be thinking that the forms that you're learning in hypnosis have relevance even in non-hypnotic contexts. Okay, so, and yes, from Michael Mesmer, the way that salespeople will assume the sale, how many units do you want to buy at the end of the sales pitch, presupposing you're going to buy, it's just a matter of how many units. So yes, salespeople, marketing people learn to use presuppositional language very effectively, and it becomes part of their normal sales routine. And I don't know if I mentioned it before, but Robert Cialdini, 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 wrote a book called Influence, where he, as an exemplary social psychologist, would become a car salesman for a while and learn how the influence methods that car salesmen use and correlate those with social psychological research. There's two versions of that book, Influence by Cialdini. One of them is a textbook and one of them is a more popular book. But it's interesting because then you can correlate the marketing method with established social psychological research. Okay, so just thinking, goal, focus attention. Your conscious mind doesn't know how you can begin to focus your attention inside. Your conscious mind doesn't know where you can focus on sensations in the center of your body. I don't know how quickly those sensations of comfort can develop. And practicing gift wrapping the message, focus inside, sensations develop. Focus inside, sensations evolve. And so you focus inside, that's the goal. Gift wrap it within a presupposition, gift wrap it with an implied causative. When you take a deep breath, then you can effortlessly focus on sensations of comfort in your body. When you take a deep breath, then you can notice images that become vivid in your mind. When you take a deep breath, then you can let your hand begin to lift up towards your face. And gradually, one of the joys of learning about hypnosis is it teaches you to use the entire palette of your communicative ability, your tone, your tempo, the direction of your speech, your gesture, your posture, your expression. All of those things become focused intently about having an effect on another human being. Oh my gosh, I think it's very loving that you would work so hard to have an effect on somebody and work so assiduously at using your hand movements, using proximity, using your expression, and build all of those things into the tempo of the presupposition and or the implied causative in order to increase the effect. So once you learn the basic dance step, then you learn additional things that you can do that makes that dance step come alive. Okay, let's see what thoughts and questions we have, and if we can think that there's a structure to this teaching right now. Okay, we start with truisms as a fundamental form. We build truisms into yes sets. We divide truisms into embedded commands. We use truisms to create dissociation statements by putting them together with a slightly different conjunctive form. We use truisms to create presuppositions. And this is the basis. And then we're building on this complexity to focus on a phenomenological goal. Okay, hi Mariana, how is everything in Brazil?
Hi, Jeff. Everything is great around here. How is everything in Phoenix?
Yeah, well, it's, getting cold here. It's freezing. It's, under 20 degrees centigrade.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wait, Kai is laughing, isn't he? Okay, so we have a lot of questions. Let me start with David Stewart. How do you, wait, this is not from me.
Hey, David.
How do you know the circumstances, the kind of client situation to use this type of induction? It seems riskier than other types of induction. And by that, he meant bigger chance of not responding.
Well, everybody responds. Everybody can respond differently, but everybody's going to respond. And the idea is if you tell a joke and the person doesn't laugh, tell a different type of joke and see what response that you can get. And if you're suggesting something and it doesn't work, like a common therapeutic task is to suggest exercise or suggest healthy eating. But if it doesn't work when you present the idea in one way, find another way to present the concept that you're targeting. And at this stage, we're still thinking in our ARE format about two simple ways of absorbing attention, absorbing in a sensation, absorbing in a perception, talking about details, possibilities in the present tense to create the effect of an alteration in attention. So there's no risk really, there's only learning, and learning involves having opportunities that work and opportunities that don't work, and then you need to build on whatever responses you're getting. So whatever responses you get, you amplify. Whatever responses you get, you can amplify more. Whatever resistance you get, you can minimize. So if you're just practicing amplifying positive responses, whatever they may be. So if it seems like hard work, just break it down into smaller steps. So, if somebody is not responding to arm lifting, they can respond to arm lowering. If somebody is not responding to arm lowering, they may respond to images in their mind. If somebody is not responding to images in their mind, they may respond to memories. So it's just, okay, there's going to be a response here somewhere, and maybe I come at it from this angle or this angle or this angle, and how can we build responsiveness? The essential component, in my estimation, is how the person responds to meaning. It's like, here's the person and they're locked into the habitual steps of their problem, and we start doing this hypnotic induction, and we're building responsiveness to meaning so that we can use that developed responsiveness in the utilization portion of trance. Okay, Mariana, what have you got?
Okay. We have two similar questions. Can I read both of them?
Please.
Okay. So John Francis asks, when you say, what does this person need to say they are in a trance? To what extent does that matter? How formal should trance process be versus a more casual conversation approach? It seems like great conversations and stories, and also advertising, can evoke powerful trances, but in much less overt ways. And then Chris Kramer also asked, Dr. Zeig said earlier, what does this person need to be able to say, I'm in a trance? Why is ratification and the client's confirmation of being in a trance important? How do these contribute to the client's responsive to communication?
Yeah. Remember, you're using the induction to build responsiveness. If there are problems that people have, very often they know the solution. They're just not complying with their own directive. They know to stop smoking. They know to eat healthy. They know to exercise. They know to minimize bad habits. Are you realizing what it is that you know? So what we want to do in the initial understanding of an induction is demonstrate to somebody you can change your state. You can respond. You can respond to my meanings so that in the therapy portion, we can build on that. Now, what any person needs to know to say, I'm intelligent, I'm creative, I'm friendly, I'm curious, we all have criteria about how do we know that we're experiencing curiosity, or how do we know that we're experiencing charm or intensity? Well, we may know by virtue of how we use our language, how we time our speech, how we're breathing, our postures that we're using, but we effortlessly change states often throughout the day, and we have markers that let us know we are friendly right now, as opposed to we are pensive, we're thinking right now. Okay, so now how would anybody know that they're hypnotized? Well, as I said, some combination of changing your attention, changing intensity, altering your ability to respond with automaticity and responding to underlying meaning. These components are central to every induction of hypnosis that's scripted, and helping the person to realize the alteration in changing their state. Well, if you're teaching somebody meditation, or you're teaching somebody mindfulness or autogenic training or active imagination, you are building on altering your capacity, being flexible in moving in and out of states adaptively. And the problem is that we get stuck. We start using the same strategy over and over again, even though we know it's not working. It's like telling your adolescent child, clean your room, clean your room, clean your room, clean your room, clean your room. And you could say it endlessly, but does it really work? And because the adolescent client knows, I know, clean your room. Now, is that a realization? Oh, I can clean my room. That would be nice for me. And so the evocative realization has to happen for a person to move forward in their life and not endlessly endlessly reiterate a series of patterns that don't get them to where it is that they really know that they can go. So we're trying to loosen some of these threads that have been so entrenched in human behavior and build flexibility. What Erickson would do in his early years is he would spend time helping people to develop hypnotic phenomena, do the induction, test for positive hallucinations, negative hallucinations, catalepsy, amnesia, hyperamnesia, dissociation, and any of the hypnotic phenomena, and then find a way to build a resource of hypnotic phenomena that could be applied to the problem at hand. If somebody's good at dissociating and they have pain, they can dissociate from their pain. If somebody is good at automatic writing and they have pain, they can write out their pain. If somebody is good about age regression, they can go back in time before they had pain. So the importance of learning induction, I think, is paramount. Learn how to do competent inductions, because then you'll find yourself weaving some of the same types of thinking, the same types of methodology, the same emphasis on using the totality of communication to have a complementary effect on another human being. So hypnosis teaches us things that I think we will never learn in other areas. I hope in that exposition I answered the questions at hand, but if I didn't, come back to them and give me another opportunity.
Okay, great. That was a great explanation. Claudia is asking, could we express the presuppositions in another way, omitting the I, self-therapist presence reference, such as somehow, somewhere, at some point?
At some point, you can realize comfort effortlessly. At some point, you can allow yourself to enjoy the way in which the images can seem to expand and be more vibrant. If that has to remind me to talk to the camera. Hi. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Carrie, is it best to stick with you may not know XYZ versus I may not know XYZ? Does the subject respond better to a blend of the therapist and subject perspectives?
Well, it's the XYZ that's important. You don't know how those movements can develop so that your hand can gently lift up and touch your face. I don't know how the movements can develop so that your hand can lift up and touch your face. It's that the hand lifting up, that's the XYZ, and the other part is the gift wrapping. The gift wrapping is not the gift. The gift wrapping is just something that makes the gift come alive. It's incumbent on us to learn different ways of gift wrapping ideas. We're starting with something microdynamic, like using a truism to gift wrap a change in attention. You can notice the way in which you focus on sensations in your body. You can notice the way in which you can allow your vision to defocus. You can notice the way in which the sounds in the room seem more vibrant. So we're using truisms to guide attention visually or auditorily. And we want to have the best opportunity that we can to gift wrap that. Now, once we can get the idea of doing microdynamic gift wrapping, where gift wrapping change your attention, okay? I don't know how your attention can focus inside. I don't know how your attention can focus inside effortlessly. I don't know how you can enjoy focusing your attention inside easily, and a complex series of presuppositions to focus inside, and focus inside how, when, what. But once we get the idea of gift wrapping focus inside in truisms and presuppositions and implied causatives and dissociation statements, oh, well, then in therapy, the concept that the client needs to realize is be more healthy. So how can we use presuppositional forms, truisms, and larger forms like anecdotes, symbolic communication, therapeutic assignments, storytelling, metaphors? How can we use those to help to elicit a therapeutic response? But once you get the idea of gift wrapping a phenomenological experience in hypnosis, extend it so that you can practice using other gift wrapping forms like metaphor or storytelling, or using symbolic means to elicit a realization. The induction prompts the responsiveness that you want to develop in the post-induction period of hypnosis. Okay, what else do we have? We have about time for 3 or 4 more questions and comments.
Great. Okay, so Linda is asking, is a truism always a presupposition?
Well, In some sense, a truism is a presupposition. Probably that would be something that a linguist would have to discuss. If you say we are here, it presupposes there's a we and a here. If we say here's a table, it's not necessarily a presupposition because the table is here and concrete. But if you were a linguist and you studied all the syntactical environments for creating presuppositions in the English language, you could probably list 30 or 40 syntactic environments for creating presuppositions. And some of them would be interesting for a linguist, but they wouldn't be relevant for the kind of effect that we want to have. So I'm saying, here's 3 different types of presuppositions that are more common to use. And if you just practice these, then you may begin to understand that there are other rhetorical devices, other syntactic environments in which you can have a presupposition. And if you wanted to have a list, you could probably go into some of the books from neurolinguistic programming, like maybe the Patterns of the Hypnotic Technique of Milton Erickson, Volume 1 and Volume 2. Those were written by a linguist, and they they do a linguistic analysis of the forms that Erickson used, and then they would give you a list of 32, 42 syntactic environments for creating presuppositions in the English language. It was a formative and very informative book to me in the 1970s when I started studying about Erickson, but it's just one of a number of tools. I would suggest that the book Hypnotic Induction that is available from the Erickson Foundation has a list in that book of these language forms and examples of how to use them. But Michael Yapko in his book Transwork has a different way of dividing the territory. Stephen Langton in his book The Answer Within has a different way of dividing the territory. Rossi in his book Hypnotic Realities, where he's learning from hypnosis how to create hypnotic communication forms, has a slightly different way of categorizing these elements. So there's no one right way. This is a way that works most comfortably for me. And once I've practiced these 3 different forms of creating presuppositions, then I'm just thinking of the target and how can I gift wrap something that would make that target come alive. And it's thinking like an artist, like a poet who's talking about a tree, but then uses a metaphor and then uses unusual adjectives and uses simile to get you to feel tree, because that's the subject that the poet is exploring. And the idea is to build intensity around that by using all of the poetic devices that this poet has been taught in graduate school and then seamlessly uses to create an interesting poem. Okay? It's
One more?
sure.
Okay. So Brenda is asking, I've done sessions where the patient doesn't remember consciously what I said. Can you say something about the effectiveness of hypnosis in this case?
Yeah. When I visited Erickson, because he would structure amnesia into the sessions that we had. And what would happen to me is I would leave and I wouldn't remember much of the structure of what he was talking about. And then a day later, something would come back to me suddenly. And a week later, something else would come back to me suddenly. And a month later, something else would come back to me. And it was a way in which the communication kept alive. Now, we teach amnesia in the advanced course because it's one of the most advanced techniques to be used by practitioners of hypnosis. And we often use amnesia to seal something away from conscious scrutiny, because people want to examine the magic trick, but it doesn't really help them to examine the magic trick. It's better to just feel the realization and bring that realization seamlessly into everyday life. But because we have a tendency to dissect things, Erickson would often build amnesia in. It's our ability to forget and not our ability to remember that makes us fully human. We digest things and they seamlessly enter into our automatic functioning, our unconscious mind, and we just do them effortlessly without having to go through the trial and tribulation of memorizing those things in our working memory. I could tell you, and I will in the advanced course, say, here's 7 ways of creating amnesia. We can extract those from Erickson's work. The problem is to understand when to use amnesia. So many hypnotic subjects will naturally just have an amnesic effect by virtue of the way in which the induction is structured. And that will be one hypnotic phenomena that's going to happen regardless of whether the hypnotist suggests it or not. Amnesias will happen. And that is an indicator of what this person is capable of. The idea of coming to expect that amnesias might happen spontaneously, and then your idea is, okay, find a way of utilizing that. You can be amnesic to the pain, or you can amnesic to the anxiety. Can you find a way of taking whatever resource you get and harness it to accomplish therapeutic goals and hypnotic goals? So sometimes, even though you don't suggest a hypnotic phenomena like catalepsy or positive hallucination, negative hallucination, age regression, that hypnotic phenomena happens spontaneously. And then your job is to utilize it, develop it, harness it, and make it work for the client. And then we get to the point where, after some degree of expertise and some degree of practice, we can think of ways of strategically using amnesia. And that's a technique that I can't say I fully master even after almost 50 years of practicing hypnosis. Erickson was magnificent about understanding people's memory structure, how they remember, how they forget, how they're influenced by things that are outside of their awareness, how things can be inserted seamlessly into more unconscious processes. And I can't say that I've ever gotten to the level of being able to master that, but I certainly do and can and will teach methods of eliciting amnesia if you want to, for example, seal something away so that it's not so terribly over-examined by conscious scrutiny. All right, we've come perfectly to the end of our 2-hour class, and there still may be some more questions, and we'll go into the studio and we'll answer them.
Thanksgiving.
Yes, and we have a special promotion, our Thanksgiving promotion that you probably have in your email box. And it's a promotion for some of the classes that we're doing next year. I'm teaching Masters Online, where we review from the Erickson Foundation archives video of Carl Rogers, of Carl Whitaker, Virginia Satir, Salvador Minuchin, and other wizards of psychotherapy, and bring their techniques into the 21st century. We have the B level of the intensive that will be starting in January. And we have many other classes that are happening online that you can enjoy. Look into your email inbox and see our special Thanksgiving weekend promotion, and hoping that you and your families have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Thank you so much.